Hi, I'm Heather Lloyd.
Hi, I'm Kendall Taggart.
Hi, I'm Kaylee Kelly.
And you're listening to the Real TO podcast, a show where we speak to leading women in real estate. How are you guys doing?
Great.
Good.
Good.
Yeah.
Back. This, I guess, show number 1, 2026.
Awesome.
I'm excited for 2026.
I know.
I can feel renewed optimism.
Yes,
for
I
2026.
totally agree. I feel like I don't know if we're just like we know what happens in 25. We knew what happened in 2025, so we just like are ready and prepared for 2026.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but
Or it just couldn't get worse.
Or it
So
can't
here we go.
It can't
It's
get
up.
worse. So don't say that.
that's a good way to think about it too.
Right.
I'm going to be raspy today because I'm just getting over whatever it is that everybody else has got, kind of thing.
Oh,
So
I
bear
feel
with
like
me.
throughout the whole like Christmas or the holidays, everyone has been sick.
Yes.
And it's been bad.
I was also
like-
saying, I think who was I talking? I think before COVID, like I would have like popped like a handful of Dayquil and just like head on into the office and just muscled my way through it. But now if you do that, it's like people judge you. Like it's a problem. People are going to judge you. You better not come in with your germs. Like, so I feel like it's like a weird mind shift for me because I just feel like I was brought up in this world where you just like, doesn't matter if you're sick, you go into work and you get it done. Kind of thing.
Totally. I feel the same. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like I would be there unless I'm on my deathbed and I just
Yeah.
like, stay away, but like pretend it's not there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, there is that like underlying, like whether you think about it mentally, it's a mental blocker for you, or whether it's actually there. I think it's more actually there than.
I think it is way more than it ever has been. At least it's so much easier to work from home, though. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
before it
it's-
wasn't as convenient. You didn't have all the systems. Now we've got like, our screens and like everyone's connected and everything. So anyway, we are, I think we're on episode, I'm not even sure.
6.
Episode 6. Okay. So, and we are speaking with Sarah Segal from DBS. So she's got this really great new platform, or I guess report that she puts out, which is a customer feedback report, which has got a lot of really valuable information that she's using to help inform investors, owners, even policymakers on what it is that the actual end user really wants, and help them to inform decisions on how we're building and moving forward. So really excited to be chatting with her today. Should we get into it?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, let's do it. All right, how are you today?
I'm great.
Good.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us on a Saturday morning. I know that it's always tricky to get out of the house. I was saying to my husband, I was like, oh, there's no sleeping in on Saturday today because it's just like a regular work day, basically. But we are so thrilled to have you here today. Sarah Segal, who is the co-founder and CEO of SimplyDBS. We're going to get into a whole lot of conversation about what SimplyDBS is. But before we do that, I'm just going to let our listeners know a little bit more about you and kind of how you came into real estate and came into this entrepreneurial venture that you're currently in right now. You have about 20 years experience in Canadian and actually global commercial real estate. Where you built a reputation for sourcing and closing really complex deals, it sounds like, and also building revenue and, interestingly enough, building new divisions within the organizations that you're in, which is very impressive and probably kept you very busy. It sounds like it also kept you traveling around the world quite a bit as well. Today, the thing that keeps you busy is SimplyDBS, which is, I'm going to say this right, a customer feedback company for the built form. But I feel like you're everywhere these days with SimplyDBS. Everywhere I look, I see your name and I see kind of your research. And it seems like you're really revolutionizing the way in which owners and investors and even stakeholders are receiving information about what the actual user and kind of owner of properties is looking for, which helps to better inform decisions. So it's really valuable and important information that I think you're bringing to the forefront, and stuff that we really haven't, I don't think, seen in our industry before. So we're really excited to chat with you about that. So thank you for coming here. Do I have anything else? Is there anything else you want to add to where you've been, what you've done?
No, I'm very impressed with myself.
You should be. Yeah.
It is pretty impressive. It's amazing.
There are some benefits to getting older, right?
Right, exactly. The benefit is being able to like acknowledge that, probably, just to be like, yeah, you know what? I did all that stuff. That's pretty great. All right. So before, I guess, first thing is the work that you are doing right now is predominantly on the residential side of real estate. It seems like those are the groups that you're really informing, but your background and your history really comes from the commercial side, as I mentioned before. Maybe you can take us through kind of your career journey. Like, how did you even get into this real estate gig? What inspired you to be here? And kind of how did it get you to where you are today with SimplyDBS?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we can go back to when I was born. No.
Let's do it. Let's go all the way back.
And we do cover residential's our biggest asset class, and then we jockey between office and industrial, and then I would say retail's at the end of our capabilities at the moment, but we're looking to build those up. But industrial and office are quite close behind residential. We just speak more to residential right now.
It's a hot topic.
It's the hot topic, and there's lots of, let's say, misinformation in the market or in the media about certain issues like eviction data or cash for keys or perception of housing providers.
Right.
So that's a big piece that we're trying to solve. But I'm a salesperson, so I've been called an entrepreneur in residence. I've been called a salesperson, all of the pieces. I love putting puzzle pieces together. My dad was a serial entrepreneur. My grandmother, actually, I've never mentioned this, so here's your.
Yeah,
I've never mentioned this in the industry, but I was thinking about it today because before I do anything important, I put on a ring my grandmother always used to wear. And when I grew up, I would always look at it, and she bought it in Paris, and it was I don't know when she bought it, decades and decades, maybe a century ago. And I put it on, and I thought about her because she also got her MBA at 60, and she bought her first investment property at 80, and she got her. She moved to San Diego from Montreal, and she just never stopped and was always innovating and building. So from her to then my father, who had a similar trajectory, always starting companies, starting new things, innovating. I think it's kind of in my blood.
Yeah.
So I was put in front of a cash register probably at a very, very young age to be legal. My dad had a business, and we had customers that walked in the door, and he said, if someone walks in, take their order. And so I started there and just sold all my way through high school, commission sales, 100% commission sales, technology, and then into university. And I wanted to sell something big and complicated and complex and dynamic, and real estate seemed to be the top of that list. So I started with CBRE in their research department and co-founded a private equity team there, and then realized there was a big hole in the Canadian landscape for hotel brokerage. So co-founded CBRE Hotels in Canada, and then was part of that team that started working with the U.S. team quite closely, and then Caribbean practice. So it was an incredible journey, to say the least. But I was definitely always on a plane and always working. And
what was the best place that job took you?
The best place.
What was the best and the worst, maybe?
Me. I was working in Bahamas.
Oh, that's pretty great.
Wow.
For a group out of Canada. They had a bunch of land holdings, and there was 2 properties there that were really interesting. We got to tour Tiger Woods' property that was adjacent to the one we were working on, where one of the Mission Impossibles was filmed, and we had a private tour of that, which was extremely interesting. They were dredging a big, deep canal, and it was fascinating. And then on that trip, I ended up at a very prestigious restaurant in Nassau. I think it was called Grey Cliffs, by myself. So when you travel for business, you're often eating out alone and traveling alone. And a gentleman came and sat next to me, and he was a wine importer exporter. And he said, "What are you doing tomorrow?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to one of the outer islands in Bahamas, and I haven't seen it before, and I'm just going to tour it." He said, "Okay, I'll meet you at the airport." So the 2 of us ended up at the airport that morning at 6 a.m. We jumped on a plane, and we got a car rental. It's a tiny sliver of land, but it's extraordinarily beautiful with wonderful beaches. And we just spent the day together touring this island, and then flew back. And I actually set him up with one of my girlfriends after that.
I thought you were going to end that story with and he's my husband.
Yeah, he's my husband. No, I set him up with a girlfriend. It didn't work out. But they had a few great conversations. So that was great. I think I was with my current husband at the time.
Okay, well then that would have.
He was also about 30 to 40 years older.
Right.
Which is fine.
Which is fine, yeah. What would you say is your most rewarding, perhaps, deal or transaction that you did during that time, would you say?
I really loved working on the Fairmont Boston Copley.
Okay.
I thought that was an incredible opportunity.
Yeah.
I started as more of a junior on the file and grew to be one of the leads. And that was an extremely interesting file because it was dynamic, it was complex, there was different pieces of the puzzle. It was historical, so touring it, when you go to a castle in Europe, it was kind of the same type of feeling. And it's a big asset, so that was a phenomenal one. But even selling Deerhurst or Horseshoe, you're selling towns,
Right. Yeah.
right? Like there's Deerhurst is the largest employer in Huntsville, or was when we were selling it.
Yeah.
And then I was working on a project in Jamaica. So, I mean, that was really interesting to get into an ecological, environmental, and social conversation around it. Everything stayed, but there was that conversation, like what happens to the value if we do this instead of that?
Right. And all the education that comes along with that. Like, it seems like if there's just so many components and just so many things that you really have to kind of educate yourself on to be able to validate the sale, really. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely, my 20-something-year-old self would have been proud of me when I ended up leaving CBRE Hotels, because I set out to do global real estate and complex transactions. And I don't think there's anything more complex than a mixed-use hotel property in real estate. It's extremely dynamic, all the different moving parts. So, yeah, I left and very proud of my footprint there.
Yeah,
and what we built and what's still running, right?
Yeah.
I mean, CBRE Hotels in Canada is one of the leading brands.
Yep.
They have a huge footprint, and I was part of the group globally that helped with the entire upbranding under the leadership of Kevin Mallory out of Chicago. So
amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I mean, this is where we can get into the female conversation,
Yeah.
but I was at CBRE Hotels. I was traveling on a plane all of the time. And my husband and I wanted to have a family.
Yeah.
And so the debate was, do I look to, they didn't have a Caribbean practice at the time. I'd been spending a lot of time in the Caribbean market in the United States. So do I look to move to Miami and start to put that footprint in for the company? Or do I sit back and say, well, what do I want at the end of the day?
Right.
And we had decided that maybe it was time to have children. So the world is very different now than it was when I contemplated that. Would my decision today as a senior leader in a commercial real estate brokerage be the same? I'm not sure. But at the time, what made the most sense was that I would probably take a step back from that role for various reasons and look at having children. So I went and worked with George Karras at RealNet at the time. It was before Altus bought them, and George Karras and I had known each other for a long, long time. So I worked on a number of things as an advisor to him.
Right.
And then when I had my first daughter, I have my own real estate brokerage, and I was working on some transactions. And another George Presbolowski from Informa, who does the real estate forums and conferences, called and said, would you come here and work with us? And this is kind of what we need you to do, but it morphed into a significantly larger and deeper role, pivoting underperforming assets, starting new business lines within the organization, looking at where the industry was going and setting those trends. So that was
checking that entrepreneurial box that you needed.
Yeah, right. So at CB, it was revolutionizing some of the research projects and starting a private equity team, starting CBRE Hotels, and then working on upbranding that entire entity along with the Chicago team. And at RealNet, it was looking at measuring its market, going into different markets, re-envisioning what a sales process and team looks like. Right. And then for George, it was all of the above and much, much more. And the idea was I would stay there while I had children and then go back into brokerage.
Right.
But, everybody knows this story that's heard me speak, but we had 9 pregnancies and 4 children. We have 4 daughters, so it took a little bit longer than we thought.
Right.
And it was a bit of a different journey than we had anticipated.
Yeah.
And I had the privilege of doing it there for 10 years without a mat leave. So George and I just figured out how to make that work as an executive in the industry, not being able to take a year off.
Right.
But we had a really good understanding, and it worked for both of us in the company, which I think was the bigger, a big win. And then when I was done having children, then as was always in the arrangement, okay, now what does that next step look like?
Right, yeah.
I was on the board of NAIOP in the States. I was on the board of NAIOP in Canada. I had actually started their development challenge was one of the pieces that I put together there, the entire DL program with John Love and John O'Toole, I was one of the founders of, and some other gentlemen. Their digital positioning, their newsletter. So NAOP I was deeply ingrained in. But my network really was global hotel. So George said, you'll know everybody by the time you leave here. So he ended up going through a number of different pieces to the value of joining him,
Right.
Especially while I was having children and taking a step back from being on a plane all the time and having to work. I mean, brokerages.
Yeah.
Institutional brokerage is not for the faint of heart.
Yeah.
So he gave me a lot of compelling reasons why it would be a good position, and he did not fail on that promise. I had an extremely interesting, dynamic, educational, rewarding 10 years there, and I'm extraordinarily proud of everything we built. And since my departure, those pieces that have remained, I really measure success for myself, not just what you can create and what you can build, but what exists after you depart. So I was on the board of on the board of the United Way of Toronto, and they had a Gen X group, and they were looking at doing an event, and so we created the Rouge Ball. And that was one of my leading elements, and it's still operational today. And we went from a couple hundred people to almost, I forget how many, almost 1,000 or something people, and it became one of their marquee events. But I exited that, and it's still there. I exited CBRE Hotels after co-building it. It's still there, right? So these are the pieces that I'm most proud of when I look back on my career, is what can stand up when I'm not in the picture.
It is nice to look, reflect and be like, yeah, I was a part of that, and I was a big part of that.
I'm so proud when I see the development challenge on LinkedIn and how excited everybody still is with NAOP.
Yeah.
Because I remember sitting in the audience and watching something similar and saying, we need this in Canada.
Right.
Yeah.
And then coming back and building it alongside some of the other NAOP members and saying, this is going to stand up. And I don't know what year they're in. It's over 10 years, and it's incredible.
Amazing. Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So pivoting to where you are now with SimplyDBS, and before we get into that, I'm just curious to hear from your experience and why you decided to put together this organization. Was it because you found that there was a gap in the market for this type of information?
Yeah, so I think one of the strengths I have, and weaknesses, let's call it, but is looking forward and saying what's missing. In real estate, at trades, you'd always look for the exits. So you don't want to take a listing on that has a single exit. You want multiple exits because then you have a clearer path to sales. And same when you're buying. So always looking at the market and saying what's missing, where can those holes be filled? And one of those pieces was data and information. So at Informa, I did have the privilege of holding lots of roundtables with very, very smart individuals. And there was a gap in what do people in our buildings think and need and want, and not just from a sentiment, but from a predictive analytics piece a little bit too. So worked in that space for a little bit there. And then when I left Informa, said, okay, this is what's being done traditionally in the market, and how, not just real estate, but in terms of surveys and feedbacks. So it's a bit broken, right? We ask people what they like or what they want at our cadence with our answers, with our answer keys, with our questions with our answer keys. So it just took a year, and interviewed the market, spoke to a lot of really interesting people. I mean, it takes a village to do anything, raise a family, build a business, come up with an idea. So privileged to have a lot of people next to me. I remember phone calls on on the lawn at our cottage, and people remind me, they'll come up and remember when. So came up with a different way of building feedback pathways, and then filling a gap, which was the lack of feedback and the lack of insights and the lack of predictive analytics within the industry. And then I was very, very lucky to have a past associate come and knock on my door and say, what are you doing? And I want to do this with you. And as smart as you are, you're not able to do this, this, and this, because she knew me extremely well. My co-founder, Catherine, she knew me extremely well. And she said, if you're actually going to build this for real, then we should be doing this together.
Amazing.
And I agreed with her.
Yeah.
Amazing. And you guys have been partners now for
So since we incorporated the company, which is over 3 years now, I believe.
Amazing.
I think she's very organized. She's very systematic, which allows us to scale and do all these great things. And we have an anniversary in our calendar. That is
amazing.
Either just passed or coming up. So
yeah. But I think I remember you saying it was like kind of 10 years in the making to get DBS to where it is today. So that's pretty incredible. Like that's dedication, I think. Like that's truly an idea that you like. I like this idea that you had this seed and this idea that there was something missing, but you went out there and really talked with everybody about like how you get it to be the most valuable resource that it can be, which I think is where you've landed with it, like from what we've heard, which we will continue to talk about so that everybody else can hear what we've heard.
Well, and that critical part of conversations is really important. So, looking at anything with a critical lens or a constructive or a creative lens. I mean, we're teaching critical thinking to children in schools these days, right? But also of ourselves. So, just because we had a hand in something, doesn't mean that it's perfect. And how can we change that? How can we evolve that? And what does that look like if we do it different? And all those pieces, which, again, I mean, part of Informa really taught me and honed in that skill of saying, okay, this is an incredible organization that's been incredibly successful, but what pieces could be better?
Right.
And how do we deconstruct them and then reconstruct them again?
Right. And look at them, like you said, from different angles. Like when you're talking to other people, they've just got different experiences and different perspectives that help to feed into adding value to what it is that you're looking to bring forward. So that's great.
Yeah. Can you maybe explain to us like a little bit about SimplyDBS?
Yeah, I think maybe just so that everybody really understands, because I think we've talked about it, we've kind of danced around it. It's a feedback company for the built form, but what does that really mean? Like, are you going out to 10,000 people? Are you going out to 25,000 people? Maybe, so that the listeners really understand the product that you have and what you're putting forward. Maybe you can just kind of dive into it. A little bit of a promo for everybody. Yeah.
It's funny that we've had, so it takes a village. We've had a lot of au pairs to help us with our children. And they're all very special. And one of them is looking at a career change right now. And she said, I don't know if I can ask these people. I actually said, she speak to the CBRE people in New Zealand and talk to them. And she said, I'm not sure I can ask them or talk to them if I'm qualified. I said, everybody loves talking about themselves.
Right.
You just ask someone for coffee and they'll talk about themselves for hours. So you are fine. So you're asking me to talk about something that's deeply, deeply important to me, which is the company we've built. So I'm happy to.
Yes, go for it.
Okay. So SimplyDBS is a feedback, insight, predictive analytics survey company. So at its core roots, we do surveys. We ask people questions and they give us those answers. And we also have circularity built into it. So it doesn't end with, here's your survey, here's your question, but they have a place to come back to at any point in time. Shapeyourspace.org is our website, and they can ask us questions. They can tell us if we missed something. We have circular surveys that sit on there all the time for a number of asset classes. And we have open-ended feedback boxes. So we're really able to understand on a continuous basis what the industry needs to know, which is what people in their buildings are thinking, needing, wanting, and their general impression of being in that space. So we've done this in a number of different ways. So from a due diligence survey, which is I'm thinking about buying a building or a site or anything, leasing. I'm looking at doing a lease up, and I have this new strategy. We'll do a due diligence survey. So we'll either use our passive data that we have aggregated, or we'll go out and actively get that data and to provide those insights back.
Right.
And then throughout the development period or through an engagement period, if it's a leasing program or if it's a capital expenditure or programming experience, we'll get feedback throughout that entire process. So for development, for example, we have 6 phases. So when the site's acquired, when you go on the ground, when you have your above ground, starting your move-in, we have surveys that carry along that journey. We have signage that goes up at site and through their entire marketing campaign, as an example. Similar if we're doing capital expenditure programming, or if we're looking at doing an enhanced program, community building. And then on the operating asset pieces, we have products like a move-in survey if it's a new build. So from not just multi-res, but office too, what went well, what went wrong, design, construction, operations, all these different pieces of the puzzle to improve that experience, both from a built form as well as from an operations piece. And on a legacy asset, a similar. And then throughout the entire operations of that asset, what does that look like when you're occupying that space from a decision maker and from a user perspective, general population? So we'll ask, we have a two-way feedback link that's always installed in properties, always on. They have a place to come to. It aggregates up to a dashboard. Annual surveys, industry surveys. So at a client level, we look to have 95% to 99% confidence that question would be repeated with the same answer. Right. Usually that number falls within, 300 to 500 people we need for that, depending on the population size. The number doesn't increase that much when you start to move up in the numbers. So for Canada, we still need that 300 to 500 person responded. But our national survey, the largest housing study we have right now, we go to a couple 100,000 suites, and our segment comes back down to, just under 30,000 was last year. That's amazing. That lets us then take it and say, okay, well, we understand that this portion of Canadians have said that balconies are essential. But now we're going to say, okay, just the people that said balconies were essential, who would give it up if we gave them something else instead?
Right.
Or, okay, we understand that the expectation is that a new build multi-residential suite in Canadian market has in-suite laundry, right? It's half when you go to a legacy asset, but for a new building. But who would pay more for it? And what would they pay? What profile?
Right.
And who doesn't need that? I mean, when you look at the balcony question, it's easy because retirees want a balcony substantially more than someone with a young family, right? According to our data. But we really want to get larger sample sizes so we can start focusing down on, the new word is avatar, but really that focus group of that customer. So what does that customer want in your community you're building within the community that it exists in?
Right.
Were you ever nervous about, like, when you first started this
Never
venture?
Nervous.
Did you get the responses that you thought you were going to? Like, 20 to 30,000 respondents is amazing. Like, did you ever feel that you would get that many people responding to your survey?
Yeah, I'm disappointed we don't have everyone.
Right.
No,
that's fair.
So I love new things, and I have the most excitement that they will work. So it is very good to have a balance on the team of team members who are like, but what if?
Right.
Yeah.
But
that's a great
what if
mindset.
that doesn't happen? And that really balances us out. We get across the board 10 to 14% passively answer a survey that we put out without really doing anything. We can get that number up to 30% with doing a little bit of incentives and some more work. We have clients that give significantly over that, and they dig in a little bit more. But people are passionate, and this is the fundamental ethos of the entire thesis, is people are passionate about where they live, where they work, and they haven't had an outlet before to communicate that. So it's not, yes, I was very excited to give feedback on the Peloton I bought, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But even more excited to give feedback on where I live if you have no control over that space aside from your suite layout of where you're putting your furniture.
Right.
Or your office space. And then taking that data, aggregating it up, and then communicating back to people and saying, you told us this. And because of that, we're doing this. Look at your impact. So building that community of feedback.
Right.
No, I'm very surprised when people don't answer. I'm not surprised when they do.
Well, I do think people are really proud of where they live and do want to make it better.
Yeah.
Right?
I think there's two things. One, I was also surprised by the fact that many people fill out these surveys. So it has to be something in the way you're presenting it, the way you're asking the questions, and perhaps I'm assuming the way maybe you're getting back to them saying, like, you did this and this is what we can show you as a result of what you did. Because I think that's also really important to people. So I imagine people would be coming back to you if they're like, oh, that's amazing. Like, I actually had an impact. And so, I will fill that out again, kind of thing. Are you seeing that?
We're seeing this. So our clients that communicate back to the respondents, whether it's an office, industrial, residential portfolio, they definitely are building that community of feedback and that reciprocal relationship on a respect basis, right? So you're in this space and we need to make it the best. And if we're going to put $1 in, that dollar needs to be impactful for both us from an ROI perspective, but also you from a user perspective, whether you're a resident or you're an office or industrial, et cetera. So yes, it is building that. We also are real estate first. So I think that this is somewhat important that we understand the questions that need to be asked to make an impact in the space.
Right.
So our clients are able to use them out of the gate to start making that impact. And the questions we're asking also, I mean, my biggest fear is not will people respond, but will people click C because they have no choice, which is what I did in algebra, multiple choice exams, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, let's go. And when I fill out lots of surveys just because, I mean, it's, you do what you do.
Yeah.
And I do get frustrated when there isn't that answer choice and I see that question. I'm like, but this whole question is going to be irrelevant because you haven't given the respondent an ability to not choose something. You're forcing them into a spot. So we really try to be mindful of that, which is also why we operate shapeyourspace.org. So if for some reason we were to get that wrong, there's always a place to come back to and say, hey, what about this? Our open text feedbacks, thank goodness for AI, because it has really propelled the ability to take the voice of the resident, the true voice, or the office employee or decision maker, and understand it at a more micro level. So we're getting 20,000 open-ended feedbacks, 10,000 open-ended feedbacks, 5,000 open-ended comments on a question. What do we do with that historically? It's great to have. We can give it back to the client and say, here's 3,000 comments, have fun. But we're training our models internally at SimplyDBS to understand, not just from a sentiment base, because we've had to customize that sentiment piece because sentiment analysis and real estate haven't always meshed. Like we found that there was a disconnect between traditional sentiment AI tools. So training our own sentiment analysis, but also training our models to be able to take out those big pieces to say, okay, well, we need names of buildings. We need names of property managers. We need immediate action items. We need all these different pieces to be pulled out so that data can be useful right away.
And do you feel like there's like one question? Like I know that we've talked to different people for surveys to get like different feedback, but there's always just that one question that's weighted like a lot higher. Do you find that you need more questions is better, or is there that one fundamental like question that you can get a lot of answers from?
I'd love to say that, I would love to say that this is the amount of questions we need to ask to get the optimum amount of responses and the most engagement. Doesn't matter. I mean, we've done 45-minute surveys. We've done 2-minute surveys.
Right.
It's a lot of it is messaging. A lot of it is what you do with it afterwards. The champions on the ground, we had a client that went 5 times the respondents year over year just because of the champions they had on the ground, and they saw the power of it in the first year. And the second year, they got everybody involved in it. And then we were able to make recommendations and advise at a building level, not a portfolio level. So, getting the, not just the respondents, but the teams in place to say, this is important and we are listening to you. And
what do you say to people who, like when you put forward this information, and suppose it's in the development phase where the question is like this whole like age-old question of everybody's going to tell you that they want the 3-bedroom, but nobody's going to pay for it kind of thing. Like how would you respond to that, to kind of the people out there who maybe are a little skeptical about those answers?
So we're working on, I mean, yes, that is a problem, right? So everybody welcomes a balcony. This is one of the things. Everyone wants a balcony.
Exactly, yeah.
But we said, 2 years ago we asked, do you want your own private balcony or would you take a Juliet balcony with more interior square footage?
Right.
And the number came back a tiny bit higher for Juliet.
Right.
And that made us say, okay, let's think about this more. So then we went out the next year with, okay, do you want a traditional balcony? Is it essential? Okay, yes. And then as I said before on today, well, 20% of the people that have said that a balcony is essential actually would give that balcony up if you offer them a decrease in rent and X, Y, and Z. So we asked questions like, how much do you value, how much value would you go ascribe to a kitchen island? And isn't a kitchen island essential? But then we ask questions like, okay, well, if a dining space gives you this or a kitchen island gives you that, now which one are you picking?
Right.
If instead of a balcony, you got more interior square footage, you got an extra bathroom, you got better storage, you got X, Y, and Z.
Right.
So we asked the same question in many different ways. And when there are those pieces of the puzzle that are like, okay, well, let's be really thoughtful about this. One of the things that's coming back is, everybody wants a bedroom that fits a king size bed.
Right.
Right? Like
Yeah.
kind of across the board. We've played with demographics. We've played with the indicators that we have, and that's a piece. So maybe next year we come out and we say, okay, well, if we can't give you a king size bed, but we give you this and this instead,
Right.
now how
Yeah.
many?
Yeah.
And we're also layering on. So we're about to go with our rental preference survey, which is where we go through about 200 different rental preferences, from amenities, technology, services, programming, because community is huge. We haven't even touched on community, right? There's the built form, but if you can't build the community to support the built form, that's a whole other piece. And our initial analysis, we're running the numbers, we run them every year, and we're running them again. But the initial analysis does show that people move not because the building doesn't meet my needs, but because the community is impactful. But so rental preference survey we're putting out. We're going to the States and in Canada this year, and we're asking what's essential, what's nice to have, what don't you want, what are you indifferent on, how much would you pay for it, and if you've said it's essential, do you actually have it?
Right. Yeah.
Interesting.
And so all these, like, we kind of see how you can really help or impact developers' decisions. But how do your surveys, or how does this information affect policies in various cities?
So part of our rental housing study, which we are also going to the United States on this year, part of those questions that we ask are you being evicted currently? And do you have complaints on file or not? Have you been offered cash for keys? Why do you think rents are rising? What do you think about the tax on a new home? And who's to blame or not blame, but where is that? Why are taxes so high on new homes? And then that is part of our community service back to the industry to say, okay, all this information we're getting from different news sources, what do the people in our buildings actually think about it? And so nobody's being offered cash for keys. The number is 0 from institutional housing providers. We're seeing less than 1% being reporting an eviction rate in institutional housing providers. We're seeing rental increases being attributed to government, not housing providers. So the whole conversation around financialization of housing and that quote unquote landlord is becoming more apparent that it's noise,
Right.
and not fact.
Right.
And if we can start looking at our housing affordability issue without the noise and with fact, then we'll see that if we power housing providers rather than calling them financialized landlords, then we're actually giving people in the buildings what they want, more of it, and we're enabling the groups that can build faster, build better, already have the density on site. So, by understanding the problem more, we can look at better, our theory is we can look at better solutions for the industry.
Right.
So taking away the noise and putting more facts in.
Do you feel like in this particular market, you're dealing with a lot more of those discussions than specifically with developers, or?
I think it's this, that part is interesting and it's impactful and it needs to happen. So we are definitely speaking to that.
Yeah.
But the development community is really focused on how do I make my pro forma work?
Yeah.
If the math's not mathing, how do we get there? And they're using our data to do that.
Yeah.
Or am I building the right thing on this site for the right people? If we are looking to build an affordable product, then what really do I need to put in? What does that priority ladder look like?
Yeah.
It doesn't help anybody if you give someone something they're never going to use.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So that's more. And then the community engagement piece, right? So we have a developer that has over 10 properties in the market with us, and they have signage on every single site.
Yeah.
And it says something new is coming. And so they're getting feedback from the community, not just what should I build, and not just building their prospect list, and not just theoretically generating those Google reviews before they go into leasing and all these different pieces of the puzzle. But they're also understanding like who in the community can teach an art class.
Right. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Are you finding that is a piece that has been missing?
For sure. Yeah. No, we haven't yet found circular surveys where we have that true reciprocal circularity with the questions and asking in any industry anywhere. And there are pieces of what we do around with different companies. Like a tenant journey software or resident journey software from prospect to move in to maintenance request. There's companies that do that in silo. But for a company to actually circle the entire ecosystem of a customer's journey through a building, that doesn't exist. And then these very engaged community models where we're able to come in and say, okay, well, what is that feedback in real time through the entire journey of a development? No. And what is an ongoing feedback solution that layers up to not just building level and portfolio level, but industry learnings? No. I mean, they don't exist. I'm happy they don't exist because it allows us to hockey stick in terms of our growth, because we are a solution that is able to offer that. I'm also discouraged sometimes, right? City of Toronto just came out with their new development signs. It would have been wonderful had they had a circular feedback portal on there that aggregated up to, learnings for the entire city.
Absolutely.
But they're not doing it, so it allowed us to do it, right? So if every developer was able to do this, then the developers then hold all of that data and are able to say, okay, if I want to build in a responsible way, understanding what my customers really want, not just in a due diligence phase, or not just looking, this is a really important comment, not just looking at past successes. So what did we give people before and what worked? Okay, let's repeat that. Great. That's amazing. But that's half the story. If we don't look at predictive analytics and what people need and what they want, then we're really giving 50% to everybody. So we need what worked in the past, layered with what do people need. If you look at the last 6 years, we've had a pandemic, a recession, a boom. I can go on. It's a dynamic market.
Yeah, so interesting. Oh my gosh. So typically, real estate has been, or not typically, I guess historically, real estate has really been kind of like a man's world. We know that women are definitely, making their moves and charging into this industry, and we see that kind of like through these podcasts, and certainly with like a lot of the women that we meet in our industry, day to day kind of thing. If you could go back and kind of like tell yourself something, or if you could give advice to women who are looking to get into commercial real estate and or have that entrepreneurial kind of like bug in them that they just cannot shake, and no matter what they do, it's going to be entrepreneurial, what would you tell them? What advice would you give them?
Call me.
I love that.
Yeah. I think that I would love to say that 20 years ago, it was a completely different world and now it's fixed. I think that it's significantly better and easier, but there's fundamental pieces that can't shift, which is business, like corporate society is based really on a masculine framework. And if you are to have children, there is a biological aspect to that. If you're a female and never want children, there's still some pieces of that puzzle to figure out, but it's definitely reduced. But to have a family, or to even just be pregnant in a very masculine constructed environment definitely has certain considerations. I think we all have families here, and we all live very differently, and we all set up our lives very differently, and we have different villages that we've created, right? So none of our stories would be the same. So I would say that don't be afraid. It's almost the same, though, if you were to say, from an entrepreneurial standpoint, I am very blessed to have an extraordinary husband who is my true love, who I adore, top to bottom. And he looked at me one day and he said, do it.
Yeah.
Just go do it, and we'll figure it out from a family position financially. But if you don't try, you're going to regret not trying. So that is a luxury I have. That's also true for a young male. That doesn't have financial background support, or hasn't come from a legacy that allows him, again, or her, to take that financial risk, or someone in their 40s, again, that has a really great job and is supporting the entire family and wants to try that leap. So I think every situation is completely different. but we just need to be there to bring each other up. I really value this podcast. I value these conversations and you ladies, because this is really important to tell that journey and to say it doesn't have to be the same. There's 1,000 ways to get there. I have 4 daughters.
Yes.
And each of my daughters will have their own journey. I was interviewed for a very high profile job, and one of the interviewers, I think I went through 14 interviews with different people. Oh, wow. I didn't get it, by the way. In the end, I don't think they ever filled it.
Just wasn't meant to be.
No, it was in the States. It was in the U.S.,
yeah,
which is different because I found it significantly more progressive in the United States than in Canada.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's just a bigger market. It's a bigger market, so there's more opportunity. But I found being a woman in real estate was significantly easier and had much more opportunities, which is why when I left CB Canada, I was looking at going to the United States.
Yeah. That feels like a whole other conversation.
Yeah. But he looked at me and he said, well, how do you expect to have this role with 4 children at home? And I just looked at him without missing a beat and I said, I have 4 daughters. How do I not?
Yeah.
I mean, I really value my friends, my family, my colleagues and associates different aspects from board positions to volunteer that are stay at home. It's a huge role and it's massively important, and we need to give it a better value statement in our society.
Absolutely.
But I also really value mothers that work and families that figure that out. And so I said to him, I can't not do this job, because then you have to be visible for everybody. And that's our role, right? Yeah. You're doing this. Hopefully someone sees it and says, I don't want to be like them, but that inspires me. And that shows me there's those pathways to do what I might want to do. So
I feel like the thread through everything you're saying is that it's okay to just do things differently. It doesn't have to be, nothing has to be the same. Like, you don't have to choose to have a family life the same as maybe the way your neighbor has a family life, or you don't have to choose to have a career the way that your your cousin or your siblings had the careers, kind of thing. So I think that's 100% true. Like, sometimes we benchmark ourselves against people and think like, well, they did it this way, so that must be the way we have to do it. But there is no right way to do family. There is no right way to do career. There's no right way to do home life, kind of thing, or not have children. It's entirely personal how you move through this world, kind of thing. So
I say a lot, you get one life that you remember.
Yeah.
So whatever you believe in the world, you get one life, and it should be a big, beautiful life. And there's tragedies that happen, and there's sorrow. And I am happy to do another podcast to talk about all the bad things, because this is not an Instagram story, right? It's not an Instagram story. But through all the heartbreak and the hardships and the struggles, I tell my children, my daughters, leave the world better than you found it. Yeah. Make an impact and have fun doing it. And my husband has the same theory, and I think that's the best message, right? Is that live your life and find the light. There's going to be bad that happens. There's going to be friction. There's going to be hiccups. There's going to be stumbles. Find the light in those opportunities and harness it, and then push forward.
Well, that was beautifully said.
I found that really, I got goosebumps a little bit there, honestly.
Probably a really great way to wrap it up is just to kind of finish there. Is there anything else that you want anyone to know about SimplyDBS, or how they can contact you?
Yeah, feel free to. I mean, I'm not sure if the contact information is in here, but feel free to reach out directly over email or text or phone. LinkedIn is great as well. I'm always happy to have any conversation. I'm extremely grateful for this conversation this morning. And if anybody listening is asked to participate in this podcast, I would urge you to say yes, because the entire journey has been different. So I've done, this is your 6th?
Yes. Yeah.
This might be my 6th.
Okay.
and I really value all of them. And they've been really great, but everyone's process is different, and this has been a really enjoyable process from start to finish.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
The way you're doing it in your way is right.
Very full circle moment there. We do have 3 questions for you, though, before you go.
Is this rapid fire?
We said rapid fire, and they're just not. So
Do I plead the 5th? Okay, ready. I'm ready. I'm getting ready.
Are you ready? They're pretty simple. Your favorite way to spend a Saturday?
I don't
With
know.
us?
But yes, here this morning. Some family, some work, something active, something quiet.
Oh, well said. That's
We
great.
have 4 children. They range from 6 to 13. I mean, I don't have the.
You don't have a favorite
I
way.
don't have the ability to say that I do anything more than once.
That's fair. That's
No
completely
day has
fair.
ever been the same.
We should have rethought that question for you. What podcasts are you currently listening to?
I love yours.
Thank you.
I always listen to Adam and Aaron for First National
Great,
on
yeah.
CRE. I have just started listening to Michael Grossman's at Peak Hill.
Okay.
I've also been on all of these. There's more. This morning, I woke up at 5:30 this morning and started to do various things, which ultimately ended me here 10 minutes late. But I did stop at a beautiful pastry shop in Forest Hill Village and get some of the best pastries I think
Which
are in
we
the
are very
city.
excited about.
Which
Yeah.
you're about
Yeah.
to either eat or bring home to your families. And because one of the things we measure at SimplyDBS is what do you want from an engagement, and the 2 things keep coming back: fitness and food.
Right.
So we try to bring food when we go places.
Oh, I love that.
Because we know people like it or need it. But no, I listen to a lot of podcasts just to try to understand. It's easy when you're out for walks.
Definitely. Yeah.
And read lots of books. I'm reading The Lean Startup.
Oh.
Ooh, okay. I'm reading The Lean Startup. It came from a friend who has a startup, and it's for entrepreneurs, but it's also for anyone in large organizations doing anything different.
Oh, interesting.
And I am halfway through, and I would say that everyone should go and buy it. It's not very expensive. And then there's another book. Please email me or pin me if you want, but it's about the Net Promoter Score.
Okay.
It's the founder that wrote the book, and it talks about how you harness the love of your customer to build big, beautiful companies. And it is one of the most foundational books that I've read. So
Wow.
I want that book.
Yeah, that's amazing.
it's really interesting. It talks about Costco. It talks about what's the book that everybody read way back when, Good to Great, or which I think is a fantastic book. But it talks about those businesses built on financial excellence versus built on customer love, and the financial excellence companies have not withstood the test
So
of time.
interesting.
And the companies like Costco and Enterprise have, and they're thriving. So, I mean, that is
That's
a
really
huge.
interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
All right, we'll put those in the notes for sure. Last question: where are you planning your next vacation?
I have 4 children and a business.
Or staycation.
And no stay-at-home help or no help in the house. There is no vacation. What am I? I have, because we have to do things very different, we bought a cottage.
Nice.
We had 3 children. One was very little, and we went on a vacation, and it was a whole bunch of things. And my husband and I looked at each other and said, we definitely want to travel, but for this phase of our life, maybe we buy a place. We bought a place that we can ski from and we can summer in. And so I spend my summers in the townships in Quebec.
Very nice.
On the border of Vermont.
Lovely.
Oh, wow.
And so I really, really enjoy that.
Yeah.
And I'm on some work trips coming up in the spring, but I actually don't like to leave my children very much. I really love them.
Yeah.
And they're very expensive to take anywhere. So I can tell you about all of everyone else's trips.
There's another chapter of your life, not this one. Yeah.
You're all welcome as well to the cottage if you want.
Well, thank you.
Anybody you ask will tell you that I've extended the invitation. We have lots of people come and stay with us. So.
That's amazing. It sounds beautiful.
It's
Wow.
really nice. Yeah. It's different. I used to travel all around the world all the time.
Yeah.
And at this phase of my life,
Totally fair.
I'm a little bit more grounded.
We
Yeah,
ran a cottage
absolutely.
in Mont Tremblant for
Mm-hmm.
I guess it was 3 summers in a row, and now we go to the Ottawa Valley, which is beautiful too. But I love
So come to us this summer.
Yeah.
It's big. You can definitely get more in Quebec than you can in Muskoka.
That's true.
I'm
Yeah.
happy to welcome you. I've got lots of kids' toys.
All right. Well, I think that kind of wraps it up. Anything else you guys want to add?
No, I think
No.
No.
That was perfect.
Yeah. Sarah,
Thanks,
anything else you
ladies.
want to add?
No, thank you.
You're good. All right. All right. Well, that's our show. Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to subscribe, you can do that on YouTube, or you can follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. We're also on Instagram if you're looking to see who's coming up next, and that's at thereal.to podcast, or we're available on LinkedIn. Thanks for joining us.